What's going on YouTube? Prof Sales here on Eat the Elephant, coming at you with another video. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what we have learned since we started selling books, which was just, I guess about 8 months ago, 9 months ago. And so I thought I would share some of the things that we have learned with you guys. Maybe you'll be able to get something from it and it'll be worth something to you. But yeah, so we have been selling books since May of last year, May of 2018. And I just wanted to talk to you guys about what all that's looked like. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay and so on. If you can't, let me know in the chat. But I'll let a couple people filter in and so on. So yeah, we have move this stuff out of the way. We have been selling books since May, so I guess it's 7, 8, 9, about 9 months ago. So yeah, I've learned a few things. I've sold some books, obviously, but I have also learned that I've got a lot more to learn, I guess. And just wanted to talk to you guys about that. I'm going to pull this up over here because I can't tell. There we go. All right, so this channel, for those of you who haven't been here before, we talk about being in business and taking life one bite at a time. That's how you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. It's a big, huge thing, but if you do it one bite at a time, you can get it done. Not that I'm advocating eating elephants, so no one with PETA write me any letters or send me any emails. But you have to take big tasks and break them down into small tasks. So that's what we talk about on this channel quite a bit. And being in business, being an entrepreneur, all those good things. And we pivoted last year. We started selling books instead of focusing so much on pre-owned clothing. And I thought I would share with you guys what we have learned. We've sold about, I guess at this point, about $27,000 worth of books since last year. I don't really know if that's a lot or not. I don't know if I don't know how much it means. In the big scheme of like booksellers, it's not a lot of money. I mean, there's plenty of booksellers out there who sell more than that every month. So Thrift Trader says, I can't imagine an elephant would be very tender. Yeah, I agree. Like, it seems like it would be tough meat, kind of gamey. Again, not advocating any elephants, but if you, $25,000 is obviously kind of a nice round number. So I thought it would be a good time to sort of reflect. Yeah, I don't know how, like, you guys who are seeing me right now, or maybe seeing this later, I don't know if you stop with milestones in your selling, but you should. You know, you should say to yourself, well, when I get to this point, I'm going to take a moment, reflect on what I've learned, and maybe adjust, course correct, maybe fine tune, maybe go a whole different direction. But if you don't do that, I think you run the risk of, you continue to do something and you don't know if really what you're doing is working or not, or if it's really the best course of action. So I think it's important. So that's why I wanted to take a moment to share with you guys about this. And I think a lot of what I'm going to share applies to other things you would sell too, in general. And you could probably apply to other categories, other types of selling. So let me just say this about last year. We sourced off and on because a few things happened. For those of you who follow this channel back then, you know that we have a warehouse that we were using for prep and ship customers, consignment customers, eBay listings and sales and so on. And we also went on a couple trips doing some sourcing and buying for some other customers, which took us out of pocket for like over a month, almost a month and a half. So we did not source books every month last year. We did not really, send in books in tremendous numbers last year. And in fact, in the month of October, I don't think we sent in a single book, which is pretty crazy to think about because we were just too busy doing these other things. Like it's what we had signed up for, and it was a 6-month process basically, and we enjoyed it and had, made good money doing it, but books was there in the background. But since the turn of the year and even December, we've really started focusing more on books. And that's led to some of these results we've had, but also, just kind of this time to reflect a little bit. Our current inventory is about 1,700 books that we have right now live on Amazon. That's not a huge number, but it's a bigger number than we had on eBay for sure. So let me share with you guys what kind of we've learned. I've got like 6 points total we learned, and I promise we won't go too long with any of them. I'll do my best. The first one is that books have a fast nickel or slow dime model. Just like a lot of selling out there, you can focus on getting quick flips or longer flips. So the fast nickel books, what I mean by that, these tend to be books that have great ranks, like 50,000 or better. As you probably know on Amazon, the best rank of any item can have is 1, the second best is 2, and so on. That means it's going to sell the fastest. So fast nickel books, I define them as they tend to have great ranks. They also tend to have a lot of sellers on the listings, probably because there are such good ranks. And there tends to be a smaller profit per book, but you get your money back very fast. A lot of these books will hit the warehouse and sell within, a few days or a week or so. And that's great because, you get your money back out of them. You can flip again, flip again, flip again. Slow dime books tend to be higher ranks, not as good a rank, and they tend to have less sellers, but they tend to sell for more profit over, of course, by definition, a longer period of time. So just like in clothing or just like in other electronics and things like that, you have like fast nickel and slow dime type books. At first, when I started, I was more of a fast nickel approach. I realized I was settling for not a lot of profit per book, but a very quick flip, quote unquote. And then I would tend to, want to try to go out and get, that book again, trying to get a lot of inventory turns. Now I've kind of evolved. I'm more of a medium 7.5 cent piece, somewhere in between a fast nickel and a slow dime, because I don't want to wait too long on long tail books because sometimes they just sit there for a long time and rack up inventory fees and they never sell. And if, there can be value in those, don't get me wrong, but I also don't want the burden of trying to flip so many books in such a short period of time, because it takes a lot of manpower to go out and do that. So I've become like a medium, something, a nickel dime, a dime. I'm not going to say the other one because that would sound bad, but something in between a nickel and a dime, if that makes sense. But you can do any of those models and they'll all work. There's not a right or wrong answer to those. The second point I'm just going to cover with you guys is I don't think you should worry about any one book. I have really learned that one a lot over this past year. Any one return you get on a book or a bad buy, you buy something and you sell it for less than you thought, or maybe even lose money on it, it's not going to make or break you. I've learned to kind of look at my books as a portfolio, just like you would a stock portfolio. Oh, hey, Thrifty Nickel, what's up? So just like a stock portfolio, that each book has its own potential, and any one component of it's not really going to do that much for you. You got to look at them as a sum, as the whole. Once the potential on a book is very little for profit, or it's not worth taking the risk of keeping it at Amazon and racking up fees, possibly even long-term storage fees, I'm done with it. I'm liquidating it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I'll either have Amazon dispose of it or send it back to me if there is profit to sell. Like I had them send back 4 books a few months ago that went restricted, and I've sold 2 of them on eBay so far. And they're like $25 a pop. So they're good books. But, normally I'm just going to have eBay dispose of it because it's just not worth my time and expense. Like you get charged for them to ship it back to you, and then you've got to list it again on some other platform like eBay. So it's really got to be worth something to do that. But I've learned just, don't get too hung up on any one book, because it doesn't really matter. Like it's just one book. You didn't pay a whole lot for it. You're not going to necessarily make a whole lot on it. So, if it becomes a burden to you or it becomes a drag on your results, just get rid of it and move on. You'll be better off not even worrying about it. Number 3 is, if you want to make books profitable, you need a combination of factors. This is probably the most important point. And it's really the same combination of factors that you have with any other item that I think you sell. So my formula goes something like this. I want to find, I'm going to try to read this because I'll forget something if I don't. I want to find the cheapest books I can in the least amount of time I can with the least amount of work to find them that sell as fast as possible for the most profit possible. Now, I know that all sounds easy to do, and it isn't, but anytime you can improve any of those areas, cost, your time, your energy to get it, your speed of sale, and your profit, you win. Anytime you can get better at any one of those areas, you win. Now, books are interesting because they're already at a pretty low cost. So you can get books for free. I have found and gotten plenty of books for free at free bins and things like that outside of certain bookstores. But ultimately, you're going to probably end up paying something for the vast majority of your books. So you can look at that cost down so low. Getting the books to come to you, which I'll talk about a little bit in the next point, is a way to improve, the time and energy that you put into them, because then you don't have to go out and try to find them, which is always nice. Then the whole profit thing, like how fast do you want to sell them? How much do you want to get out of them? It goes back to that slow dime and fast nickel factor I mentioned earlier. That's really up to you. I feel like, though, if you want to spend less time and energy on books, you probably have to move more towards the slow dime approach. If you're okay with putting the time and energy and want to turn a lot of dollars really quickly, then you probably want to go towards the fast nickel model, in my opinion, from what I've seen. But anytime you can get better at any of those 6 areas, or I guess it's 5 areas, anytime you can get better at any of those 5 areas, cost, time, energy, speed of sale, or profit, you win. You'll put more dollars in your bank account. Which, by the way, reminds me, I didn't have this on my list, but your return on investment on books will be very, very high, but it won't be a lot of dollars. I'm in a book selling mastermind with 3 other guys, and I've talked to a bunch of other booksellers too. And, if you're going out and you're getting thrifted books and you're not getting some big heavy number of textbooks, but you're going out and you're getting thrifted books and you're selling them for like 14, 15, 16, 17 bucks a pop, you're going to net somewhere around $5 per book after your fees and cost of goods and things like that. And again, it can be within a range of there, maybe 6, maybe 4. And, one of the keys to having a book selling business is just find enough of those books, get an inventory big enough, and then just replenish what you're selling each month. And you're just turning it over and over and over. I mean, if you sell 1,000 books a month at $5 profit a book, you net $5,000 pre-tax. So that's kind of like the math of books that are kind of what I call sort of the bread and butter thrifted books. Now, you obviously could set your parameters in a way so that, you wouldn't make less than $7 or $8 or whatever amount you want to make. But you're going to be somewhere in that $4 to $6 range, I think, with most of the books that you're going to find in like thrift stores, estate sales, places like that. And if you don't want those, fine. If you do want them, that's fine too. You could even go lower and accept a lower profit amount. You can play with that number. Books are so easy to change your model and tweak it, much easier than a lot of other niches and so on. Like clothing, you can settle somewhat, but you have to learn other brands and what sells. Books, you don't really need to do that. It's all about like sales rank and sales history, and it's the same kind of across the board. You just change like what you want the output to be. The input is the same. Number 4 is that, man. And by the way, if you guys have any questions or anything, comments, just put them in the chat or leave them, after the video post. If I can answer them, I will. No promises on that. Somebody said there might be some value in starting a textbook buyback program at local college campuses. Yeah, I know somebody doing that, and he's having great success with that. It's definitely a great model you can set up, and it's actually a good deal for the students a lot of times too, because you can pay them sometimes more than they would get if they went to the bookstore, and you get a valuable book that, in a few months' time will be worth, a bit more than you sold it for or bought it for. Absolutely. That's a great model. That's kind of the probably the slow dime approach somewhat, because you're going to get the textbook and you might turn around and flip it right again, but probably you're just going to wait until the next textbook season, wait until January, wait until August, and then sell it, for more than you bought it. But yeah, that's a great point. And that has the books coming to you, right? So you win. They're kind of coming to you. You're getting them cheaper than you would potentially. So yeah, that's great. Number 4, this is probably the most common sense one, but books are heavy. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, right? I mean, that's pretty commonsensical, but they're heavy and they take up more space than you think. I guess I thought when I first started this that, we're going to ship everything to FBA and we're not going to need a lot of room to do all that. Wrong. If you go out and you buy 200 or 300 books, let's say at a book sale, which is not uncommon, they're going to be all different sizes, and the space they're going to take up is, a good amount of, almost 2 tables worth. And then you have to have somewhere to put the ones you've already done something with and you're ready to send off. And you got to put them in different stacks depending on what fulfillment center they're going to. So they take up a little bit more room than you think. I definitely think you can do it in most people's homes or your apartments or house or wherever you live. Like a spare bedroom or garage will definitely work. You're going to need some table space. I'm going to recommend you're probably going to need like 3 tables to really make it work. You're going to need a couple to set them on as you get them and maybe underneath. And then as you start floating them onto the next table, I like to space mine out when I start putting out fulfillment centers. Like I'll put little sticky notes down and say, okay, this fulfillment center or this box, sometimes I go ahead and make the boxes, is, Phoenix 1, or this one is Baltimore 1, whatever. And then that way, like you can set them out as they start, when after Amazon, if you get splits to different fulfillment centers, but you need some room, more room than you think. I definitely think 3 tables is enough. Like I have the little Costco tables that we got that are, I think they're 30 or 36 inches long, and they might be 30 inches long, and a couple feet wide. They might be 36. Yeah, I think they're 3 feet by 2 feet. And those are great because they fold up. You can change the height depending on how tall you are. But you're going to need some room. So make sure and by the way, protect your back. 30 books in a container, which is what I like to carry, can be 40 pounds, every bit of it, even 45. And 40 pounds is not a lot of weight, but if you turn the wrong way or don't lift it right, you definitely can pull something. So, invest in equipment if you need it, like get a 2-wheeler. You can pick up a cheap 2-wheeler from Walmart for like $25 and it'll hold up to 150 pounds. I wouldn't put 150 pounds on it, but it'll definitely hold 60, 70 pounds. You can put a couple totes on it and wheel them across to wherever you need, or just find one off of Craigslist or something. But yeah, there's definitely some weight and size to books that I was not thinking about when I first started this. So I've gotten kind of spoiled with this desk we have right here, which we're actually going to be losing because we're moving to a new office soon, which we'll do some videos about that. But yeah, get some room. What does Oz's comment say here? The shipping premium via Amazon / box size is also consideration when packing. Yeah, I didn't even put boxes on here, but that's a great point. You're definitely going to need some supplies. And I probably should just do a whole separate video on that, what you need for book selling, or at least what I found I need. And there's other things you could get, but yeah, that's a great point. Number 5, this is probably the most important and probably the most encouraging part about books, I think, that I have found. So when I started selling jeans like 4 years ago, almost at this point, I didn't know, like I knew there was a lot of supply around, but I didn't know how good the supply was going to be. And it was pretty good, but I realized very quickly that if I wanted to like scale to a huge jeans selling business, I was going to have to go outside of Charlotte very, very regularly. And even then it was going to be a challenge because it's just, if you look through 100 pair of jeans, you might only find 1 or 2 that work. And most stores didn't have more than maybe, 300, 400, 500 pair, depending on the store. So sometimes you might come out of a store with only 5 or 6 pair, and that kind of isn't even worth it. Finding books is not a problem because they are everywhere. And I mean everywhere. There are more sources of books than you can imagine. Thrifts, yard sales, estate sales, libraries, schools, neighbors, bookstores, etc. People want to even just get rid of them, exchange them out. There's free bins at certain stores. I mean, it is just crazy how many sources of books there are out there. And there's a lot of books out there, millions and millions and millions of books. There's no shortage. Your solution, the challenge is to get books to come to you, or find ways to find the profitable books very quickly where they reside. Because I've talked about this with my book selling friends, and we've talked about doing certain types of events and so on to have people bring books to us, or we pick up books, for free, which is great. You get them for free, but the reality is still like 97, 98% of those books are not going to be worth selling. So you're going to have to do something with all the extra ones. It's not a problem to find books. The problem is to get enough books that are worth it in as little time and energy as possible. Because you can put a lot of time into that if you're not careful. And we definitely have done that in a few cases. I kind of look at the thrift stores as warehouses. I talked to somebody about this the other day. They're like a warehouse that I've contracted a warehouse to hold all these books for me until I want to go in and pull the ones that I want. And in return, I give them, a purchase price. And on my side, I don't have to take with me the books that I don't want. I just need to go and scan them. So that's kind of cool. But if you start getting onto these other methods, like if you go to yard sales and estate sales and so on, you need to scan libraries and so on. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's no shortage of books out there. You're not going to run out of sources anytime soon. Even if you live in a decent sized city and you hit all the places in your area, by the time you've probably done that, you could probably go back and start again, because a lot of these stores will kind of reload, or certain places will reload. Depends on where you're going. But you're just going to find more and more books out there, because there's just tens and tens, if not hundreds of millions of books out there. So you're never going to scan, we've scanned, I think Car and I have scanned about 145,000 books so far, which is not that many, and sounds impressive, but it's really not that crazy of an amount. And, we haven't gone to thousands of places to do that. I mean, it's been I think we've gone maybe 200 or 300 places maybe to do all that. I could have to look at my numbers again, but it's not a crazy amount. So you're not going to have a problem with that. Mark says, what's the most expensive book you bought? I think we bought one for 20. No, we bought one for $12. That's the most expensive book we bought so far. And it was selling for 40. Although I think it might have only sold for 35 actually. So not a crazy amount, but that's the most we paid. And we bought that book at McKay's, I think, and we just paid, kind of a premium because it was a great rank and it sold for, the last point I was going to share with you guys, we've learned in this first 25K worth of books is, I don't even know. I don't think I can say this often enough or strongly enough. If you want to be a successful bookseller, scan a lot of books. I mean, you're going to have to do it. Maybe you're doing arbitrage online, so it would be to look up a lot of books, but you're going to have to scan a lot of books. I'm not an expert, but I've learned this very simple truism about books. The more books you scan, the more you find. It is just that simple. Whatever your accept rate is, maybe you've got a really high accept rate. Maybe you're getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% of the books you scan. Maybe it's really super strict and you only get 1%. Doesn't matter. The more books you scan, the more books you're going to get. And that means the more profit you're going to make. Now your challenge is to figure out ways to scan that quickly and to, get to the books as quick as possible. But we've done a couple things to help us. We use ScoutIQ for our scanning, which there's a link in the description. And we also, which is terrific. And we also use Accelerlist to list, because that's the back part of the process, which is also a link to that in the description. So you can check those out. And there's other options out there. Those are not the only two by any means. But whatever you do, you should use something to help you scan and something to help you list, because those two products, I mean, we sourced 1,000 books in January and sent them in, over 1,000 books. There's no way we could have done that with just the Amazon seller app. It would not have been possible. We would have made so many mistakes and it would have taken so much longer. So, getting a good seller, a good scanning app, and getting a good listing app, to me, are a critical part of any book selling business. But to find a lot of books, you got to scan a lot of books. I don't know how else to say it. Like, there's no shortcut to that, really. You could get a lot of books coming to you. Even you could get all your books coming to you. Like, you could have 40,000 books in a tractor trailer showing up to you every other week or every week, whatever. You still got to scan them. Like, you've got to find out if they're worth selling or not. So there's just no way around scanning a lot of books. So if you go somewhere where there's a bunch of books, scan them all at first. You're going to learn, like, there are certain categories, like nonfiction does better than fiction overall. There's better nonfiction books out there, and they tend to be more prevalent than fiction. But, scan books, scan, start learning what accepts are. You can play with those triggers on ScoutIQ or the ones that come with it. You can tweak those if you want, and figure out what categories are really good and which ones aren't. But don't think you can cherry pick. If you walk into a store and it's got 10,000 books in it, you're not going to be able just to look at them all and tell if they're good or not. Even once you start getting some competency at this, you're not going to know. Car and I are frequently surprised. We'll scan some book and it'll be great. Or we'll scan some book we think will be great and it's not. So you're not smarter than the market. The market knows much more than you. These databases and these scanning apps and so on are great tools that will help you find profitable books faster. Remember, like I said earlier, like, when you find books faster, you win. Like, you get more profit. When you find more books faster, you win. So just scan the books. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like, scanning the books is the same as researching the books. It's the same as researching another product in another category. Sorry, Karen's giving away spoiler alerts in the chat. But yeah, it's important to scan a lot of books, guys. And you'll start getting a handle on how many you'll start finding. And then once you know, hey, every 1,000 books I scan, I find 20 or 30 or 40 or whatever, then you can start figuring out, well, how much am I going to make in those? And you'll start seeing the profit. When you put them in Accelerlist, it'll tell you what your estimated profit is. And then you can start figuring out your business. Like, you're like, all right, well, if I want to make $1,000 this month, then I know I need to sell this many books, which means I'm going to need this many in inventory and so on. It means I'm going to need to scan this many. And you can figure it out. Like, it's not a mystery anymore, but there's no substitute to scanning the books. I picked that one for last on purpose because I was like, that is the most important part when you start a book selling business, and even ongoing. You're going to have to scan the books. That barcode is your friend. Learn to love the barcode. Be the barcode's best friend, and it will tell you everything you need to know when you scan it. So anyway, but those are 6 things we've learned over this last year of selling $25,000 worth of books. Maybe after I sell 100,000, some of this will change a little. I'll probably just learn maybe a little more advanced things, I hope. But I don't think these 6 basic facts are not really going to change too much. There's a fast nickel and slow dime method. Don't worry too much about one book. It's like a stock portfolio. Profitable books is a combination of factors: cost, time, energy, speed of sale, and profit. Books are heavy and take up space. Books are everywhere, and you need to scan the books. It's really that simple. So anyway, yeah, so if I got a few minutes here left, if anybody's got any questions or snide remarks they want to make. I know there's a bunch of people in the chat I haven't said hello to. What's up, Yvonne? Mark Corbett? Mother's mustache. That's a great name. Does the scan app scan the cover if there isn't a barcode? No. So the ISBN is, if the book was printed past like 1972, I think, it will have a ISBN inside you could type in. Like ScoutIQ allows you to type in. All the scanning apps allow you to type in a barcode or type in a ISBN number, and that'll tell you the info. If it's older than that, you may have to scan with the seller app and see if like the picture gets recognized by Amazon. But some of those you could skip in the moment, like, because there's so many barcoded books out there. It's just, if you find a long tail older book that's going to net you $15, great. But how much time did you take looking it up and figuring out? Maybe you could have found 3 other $6 books that would have, netted you 18 bucks in that amount of time. You got to weigh that off if it's worth it or not when you first start. Mother says, I have a 2 KDC I bought 2 years ago, and I just need to slow down and figure them out. Yeah, they're super simple, mothers, and they will actually make you go much faster than just your phone. I didn't mention that because this isn't really a tools video, but using a Bluetooth barcode scanner, super profitable. I mean, even if you buy a KDC or an Opticon, you spend 200 bucks on a new or whatever, and well worth it, like money well spent, because you will scan so much faster than your phone can go. And remember, we said, if you go faster, if you can scan through books faster, you're going to find books faster, you're going to get more. Like, you win when you do that. Like, they will pay for themselves like within a month if you're out there doing it, kind of full time. So make sure if you're on the fence about a Bluetooth scanner, and there's cheaper Bluetooth scanners out there too. I haven't used them. I have a KDC, but there's other ones I've heard that are pretty good too. We have a couple KDCs. Just use them. I mean, use one, period. I don't care which one it is. You buy one of the cheaper $40, $50 ones, because it will speed you up so much. Well worth every penny you spend on it. Cannot recommend it enough. Don't pass on the non-barcode books. Picked up some good ones. Yeah, and there are some good ones, like we said. But I think when people are first starting out, they might do better sticking with the barcoded books, because you'll tend to get a little bogged down in the research of a non-barcoded book potentially, especially if it doesn't have an ISBN, and you're trying to look it up and figure out in the seller app. What you can do is maybe put those to the side and then come back to those at the end of that particular scanning trip in that particular location, and then look them all up. So you're kind of batching the tasks together, because I find getting bogged down in the moment will actually slow you down quite a bit. So that's what I would do, or I have done. So something to think about there. Who else is here? Ellen. What's up, Ellen? Rex. How's the new baby? Rex, for some reason, thought Karen was pregnant, and had a whole conversation with me about it on Facebook, until I finally, told him, I'm like, Rex, she's not pregnant. I don't know where you got that from. Bonafide, what's up, Chris? Long time no see, my friend. Yeah, the scanners are $50 each 2 years ago. Now they're expensive. I know, right? They all went up like crazy amounts. They like tripled in price. It was kind of nuts. I remember that. I unfortunately did not get them for $50. So, yeah, but I'm curious too, like what other like hacks have you found out in your business, or just even not even hacks, but just truisms in your business that maybe you didn't know when you started? And not that like you changed your mind on it. Maybe you just didn't even know. I didn't know how prevalent books were going to be. For instance, I didn't really know the extent of that. I didn't know how much scanning was going to make a difference on it. I still thought there was going to be a lot of, eyeballing it and figuring it out. I don't eyeball anything for the most part. So those are the things I didn't know. And I already knew I wouldn't worry about one book too much, but I also didn't know what model I would pick, like a faster nickel, slow dime, or sort of in the middle, like I've kind of chosen. Yeah, so if you guys have other things, share those in the chat or share them in the comments, just like things you've learned in your business and your niche that maybe are, you are different than what you thought, or maybe you just didn't know them and you learned them as you went. Yeah, that's how rumors get started. I know, right? Ryan, what's up, Ryan? Ryan asks, is book selling becoming super saturated as the hot Amazon startup trend? I don't know, Ryan. Like, people speak things into existence with a lot of these trends. And there's a friend of mine who says, the best time to start selling on Amazon is 2 years ago and right now. So, his point is, there's always, you only have right now. You can't control what's going to happen in the future. So is it becoming super saturated and it's harder? I don't know. I kind of don't think so. Like, I feel like there's certain niches out there that are just so big that it's hard for them to ever get filled to capacity. to the point where it would just tank everything. And books are kind of interesting. Like textbooks, we were talking about this last night in our mastermind group. Textbooks will kind of tank in price over, like, once they get out of season, because people want to dump them. They don't want to have them anymore in their inventory. But other types of books don't really tank that much. Like, they'll fluctuate, but the fluctuations are more like, there's one seller selling it for $15.95, and then somebody comes on, decides to sell it for $14.75. Well, sometimes everybody jumps on that $14.75 price and drops their price, but a lot of times they don't. And I don't. Like, I'll keep my books on there for a month before I'll fool with the price or have the repricer mess with it, because the reality is a lot of times people come on, they just want to dump a copy, and then they're gone. Well, once they sell out, then yours is the next one. So you don't have to really freak out and say, oh my gosh, you're down to $14.75. I better drop to $14.75. So I just think, like, it becoming super saturated. I don't know. There's probably data out there somewhere that would tell you how many sellers there are in relation to how many offers, and maybe you could look at the trends and make some sort of statistical analysis of that. But I don't really know. I don't really fool with it too much or worry about it. I mean, as long as the business is still profitable for what we're doing, we don't really care how many sellers there are. There could be 100 sellers or 100,000 sellers. I just want to, make sure it's still working for us. Keeping organized with where the books came from and how much and what receipt, and building that custom SKU helps. Yeah, I know, Mark. A lot of people build these custom SKUs around books, but I'm a little skeptical of their utility, because, and I'm a data junkie for sure, but I would be the first person to say, if you're going to track something, great, but what are you going to do with the information? For instance, like, I thought about tracking our locations, like where we bought certain books, like by chain or type of location. And then I started thinking about, does that really matter? Like, I feel like a chain of stores, like say Goodwill, for instance, and the Goodwills in your given area, because Goodwills they're regionalized. Like, they'll have a region, and this region will sort of do it a little differently than this region. But I feel like the Goodwills in your area might all be very similar. So if you go on one, it's similar to another, then it just comes down to, like, well, how many books do they have? If this one's got 500 books, this one's got 1,000 books, all things being equal, you're going to find twice as many in the one with 1,000. And so then you can make some determination there. But does it really tell you that much about Goodwill versus an estate sale versus Salvation Army? I mean, like, if you were comparing, like, well, do I do better at estate sales than Goodwills? That's so random. Like, estate sales they're not the same across the board. They're all going to be different. Whereas Goodwills are going to be very similar within a region. You're not really comparing two things that are, have the same sort of metrics behind them. So I just think in a lot of cases, it's not going to really matter. I do think with library sales, they tend to be, like, library sales is a great example. Library books tend to be better quality and better well kept. And we tend to find a higher percentage of pulls there, but there aren't as many books at most libraries as there are other places. So you got to go to more libraries, which takes more time because you're driving a car. So there's trade-offs with all of it. But I just think I think the sales total on the back end doesn't even matter. Like, if your triggers are the same for this batch of 1,000 books and this batch of 1,000 books, then you're gonna get around the same sales numbers for both. Like, it's not going to change that much because you're sourcing the same books in both cases. So thinking this book came from this store and this one came from this store and trying to compare, like, which one sold for more, that doesn't really make sense, because your triggers are the same no matter what book you're scanning. Like, the triggers don't know where the book came from. They're just triggers. They say, all right, if it meets this criteria, buy it, and if it doesn't, reject it. And then when it sells, it's going to sell for whatever it's worth. It's not like, I don't think there would be any reason for a particular source to have better books than any other source. I do think there might be more books or less books, the types of sources. That's true, just based on their own business model or, where they're getting their books from in the first place. That's, of course, true. But would they be any better or worse in terms of how much they sell for? I suppose if somebody was consistently scanning them and pulling out some of the more meat on the bone, maybe. But I don't know if that, I don't know that it really matters as much as we think it does in book selling. I don't even track much on the SKU anymore. I track the cost per book and the date of the not the date purchased, but the date of the batch was created. And then of course the MSKU, and that's it. I don't really think anything else really matters, but I could be wrong. I mean, I could be persuaded to be different, but that's just what I've been tracking. Let's see what else is here. The North Georgia region is going online this year. Let's scan the book now. I've already started. Yeah, you know, it's funny. Like Karin and I have already moved away from going to like Goodwills and most thrifts. I don't find in general that, you know, that it's often that worth it. There's a loud horn outside. We have gone to certain thrift stores that, you know, we really killed it at, but others were just kind of meh. And it just came down to like some stores had a lot of books and others had very few. We went to one Goodwill somewhere several weeks back, and I feel like they only had like 50 or 60 books. You know, it was crazy tiny number. And I don't think we might have pulled one. And that's pretty normal for what you pull. But I just think that, you know, a lot of times it's not going to matter between one store of a certain, you know, chain or another. Like they're all going to be fairly similar. If they're pulling their books and they're selling them online, they might pull some of the better ones. But I've seen some of the Goodwill books that are being sold on Amazon, and I've not been impressed. Like I don't know what their people are thinking. Why Amazon think or why Goodwill thinks it can go on Amazon and sell like a bulk bookseller. I have no idea. Even if they're getting zero for the book, they're still having, or they're not paying anything for the book. When they go on and they sell like $5.72 books, their profit is very, very tiny at that point, and that's not even including the cost for someone to process that book and store, you know, or send that book in, and you know their materials and their label, and I mean, even if they're doing merchant fulfilled, it doesn't make much sense. Like I feel like it's them getting into a business just because they think it's going to be more profitable, but they haven't really thought it through. They would be better off just to flip those books out to a local bookseller for more and then not have to ever put them in the store and have them take up shelf space and move them around. And I just feel like it's sort of short-sighted on their part. And I think a lot of the stores and regions will figure that out and realize, hey, this whole book thing is not what we thought it would be. When did you realize books were a winner? Did you scale it up because you sold a few, or did you see once you had 500 there was a good income flow? It's just stock. It's just like a stock portfolio. I mean, if you have enough good stocks in there and you hold them for a period of time, you're likely to get a return. You have enough good books in there and you hold them for a period of time, you're likely to get a return. They're going to sell. I don't think there was like a moment. Like I knew it before I even started that it was going to be, you know, that it had potential. I mean, it's not like some get rich quick scheme. It's not that at all. But my granny's congregation helps with the Friends of Library sale. They're voting whether to implement a buy-in lottery or offer a 1-hour time slot to scan before regular buyers come. Yeah. These Friends of the Library are so interesting. Like they're all different and they're all really a great bunch of people. You know, and they're volunteers. So if you can become friends with these people, it's worth your time to make some connections there. What's up, Connie? Just trying to prevent the overrun of people scanning while casual people are there to shop. Yeah, I mean, I think mothers that when these Friends of the Library do these preview sales, that tends to attract all the scanners. And then the next day, it's not as well attended by scanners. There's more people there just shopping. But let's be real, you know, if you run into a Friends of the Library that's giving you grief about that, you know, maybe educate them a little and say, look, you know, I'm here to buy a lot of your books. I'm going to buy way more than the average person. And I'm average, and I'm here to sell these books to somebody else who wants to appreciate them and keep them. So I'm doing a good service for the book. I'm doing a good service for the friends and a good service for the library. So I'm a customer you don't want to make upset. and sometimes that'll work. You know, they'll kind of understand that, you know, you're not their enemy. You're there to help them. So, all right, guys. Well, listen, I think that's going to do it for today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Be sure you check out the description if you want to find some links to things like ScoutIQ, Accelerlist, some of the stuff we use, some of the other tools like scanners we talked about today too. And, you know, leave a question or comment if you like. Hit the like button if you want on your way out. That would be cool. Lets me know I'm doing a good job. I'll be back soon with another video. We've got some stuff we're doing this weekend. We're moving into a new office. So, and it's raining here in Charlotte, of course. while we're trying to move stuff around. But we'll get it done. So it'll be fun. We'll share all that part of the journey with you guys too. It's gonna be fun. All right, guys. So have a great rest of your Friday, and keep eating that elephant one bite at a time. See you soon.